The human stepped off the small transport vessel and took a deep breath. Even though the room was enormous and filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, the air felt oddly calm. The floor beneath their feet glimmered faintly, as if reflecting the light from hundreds of hovering energy sources above. This was the chamber of the Galactic Council, a place where decisions that shaped the galaxy were made. For most civilizations, this hall was the pinnacle of knowledge and power. For humans, it was intimidating, almost overwhelming. Yet, standing there, the human felt a strange sense of purpose. They had traveled farther than any human had before, leaving behind the familiar blue and green of Earth to speak to beings who had never truly considered humanity as significant. Whispers passed through the chamber as soon as the human entered. Some of the council members had seen humans before, usually as distant observers, and assumed they were a primitive species. Others had heard tales of human curiosity and resilience, but few had taken the stories seriously. Now, here was a human, standing calmly in the center of the chamber, ready to speak. The tension was almost tangible, a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and disbelief. The human took another steadying breath and began to describe Earth. They spoke not of weapons or power, but of simple things: forests that stretched farther than the eye could see, rivers that carved through continents, and skies that changed color with the rising and setting sun. The words flowed naturally, painting a picture of a world that seemed almost poetic. Many of the council members tilted their heads, listening with a mix of confusion and intrigue. They had seen thousands of worlds, but none quite like the one the human was describing. As the human continued, they mentioned something that made the room shift noticeably. "Earth has liquid on it," the human said calmly. At first, there was silence, then a ripple of murmurs. Several council members blinked, or the closest equivalent of blinking for their species. Some leaned closer to one another, trying to confirm that they had heard correctly. Liquid? On a planet? In stable, vast amounts? That was almost unheard of. Many planets had ice, or occasionally rare rainfall, or even shallow pools, but oceans, rivers, lakes that could support life? That was astonishing. The human didn't stop. They described the oceans, vast and deep, stretching across most of the planet's surface. They spoke of lakes that mirrored the sky, rivers that carried life from one region to another, and underground reservoirs that fed entire ecosystems. They explained that this liquid was not just water, but a source of life, a medium in which countless creatures lived and thrived. The council members were astonished. Some of them had only known water in small amounts, and even then, it was usually not safe for intelligent life to interact with. For humans to have a planet covered with it, and to live safely on it, was beyond their understanding. Questions started to flow from the council. How could humans survive surrounded by liquid? How did they prevent drowning or contamination? What about storms and floods? The human answered calmly, explaining Earth's natural balance. The atmosphere, the gravity, the way water moved through rivers and oceans, all of it worked together to create a stable environment. The human didn't speak in technical jargon, but used simple analogies, comparing rivers to veins that carried life through the body of the planet, oceans to heartbeats that kept the planet alive. Slowly, the council began to understand. The murmurs of disbelief were replaced by whispers of curiosity. The human then shared images of Earth, captured from orbit. Holographic projections appeared in the air, showing blue oceans stretching into the horizon, white clouds drifting lazily above, and green forests dotted with mountains. Aliens who had never experienced a planet with such diversity were visibly stunned. Some reached out to touch the projections, as if seeing it with their senses would make it more real. But even advanced sensors could detect the vast presence of liquid, and even the most skeptical members had to admit that this human was telling the truth. Despite the awe, not all members were convinced. Some still whispered doubts, suggesting that perhaps the human had misinterpreted the data, or that this liquid was not stable, or perhaps it was an anomaly. The human, sensing their hesitation, smiled faintly. They didn't argue or try to prove superiority. Instead, they shared stories of life on Earth, how humans had learned to swim, to sail across oceans, to build cities on the edge of seas. They spoke of animals and plants that thrived in water, and of the human ability to adapt and live in harmony with these liquid landscapes. Slowly, even the skeptics began to see that Earth was not just a planet with water. It was a planet alive in ways the Council had never encountered before. The room grew quieter as the human continued. They talked about rain, gentle and nurturing, and rivers that flowed tirelessly, carrying nutrients across vast distances. They described the sound of waves crashing against the shore, the feeling of rain soaking the skin, and the joy of humans swimming in natural waters. It was not just a planet full of liquid, it was a planet full of life, interaction, and experience. And humans, the Council realized, were not merely surviving, they were thriving. By the time the human paused, the atmosphere in the chamber had shifted completely. Where there had been skepticism, there was now fascination. Where there had been whispers of doubt, there was quiet acknowledgement. The simple statement Earth has liquid on it had captured the imagination of beings who had seen thousands of worlds. The human had not needed to shout or to show off weapons or technology. The truth itself was powerful, and it resonated in a way that the Council had not anticipated. For the first time in recorded history, a single human had held the attention of the entire Galactic Council, not through force, but through clarity, patience, and the wonder of truth. The human knew that this was only the beginning. Their words had opened the door to understanding, but the journey was far from over. There were more questions to answer, more doubts to dissolve, and more stories to tell. But for now, they allowed the Council to marvel, to reconsider what they thought they knew, and to begin seeing humans in a completely new light. The human took one last deep breath, knowing that they had planted a seed. That seed would grow into curiosity, perhaps respect, and maybe even admiration. And while Earth was just one planet in the galaxy, the simple fact of its liquid, life-sustaining nature had changed the way the most powerful beings in the universe thought about humanity. The human stepped back slightly, letting the images of Earth float in the air, shimmering with oceans, rivers, and life, and waited to see what the Council would do next. In that moment, standing in a hall of incomprehensible power and intelligence, the human realized something profound. Sometimes, the simplest truths, told with honesty and patience, could astonish even the greatest minds. And the story of Earth, a blue world of water and life, was just beginning to be told. After the human had described the oceans, rivers, and lakes of Earth, the room remained quiet for a moment. The Council members, who were used to facts, numbers, and precise scientific explanations, were struggling to process what they had just heard. A planet covered in vast amounts of liquid, teeming with life, and supporting a species that could walk, talk, and thrive. This was not something they had expected. Many of the beings exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of astonishment, curiosity, and disbelief. For some, it was as if they were witnessing a fairy tale unfold in real time, and yet the evidence hovering in the air proved it was real. The human noticed the surprise and took a slow step forward. They knew the Council needed context, not just images and data. They began to describe Earth's atmosphere in simple terms, explaining how it worked with the liquid on the planet to support life. The air contained the right balance of gases, mostly oxygen and nitrogen, and it formed a protective shield against harmful radiation from the sun. They explained that this atmosphere worked together with gravity to keep water in oceans and lakes and to allow humans and animals to survive on land and swim in water. Every word was simple, yet precise, painting a picture that even the most skeptical council members could follow. One of the elder counselors, a tall being with translucent skin that glimmered faintly in the light, spoke up. "You claim your planet has vast amounts of liquid," it said. Its voice was calm, but carried the weight of centuries of authority. "How is this liquid stable? Most planets with liquid cannot maintain it long enough to support life. The energy balance alone would cause evaporation, storms, or worse. How do you manage it?" The human smiled slightly, appreciating the question. They had expected skepticism. They responded, "Our planet has a natural system. Oceans and rivers are part of a cycle. Water evaporates into the atmosphere, forms clouds, and returns as rain. Rivers carry water from mountains to seas, and oceans spread it across continents. There are natural processes that keep the balance, and humans have learned to live with it, not against it." The council chamber was silent again, but this time it was filled with a different energy. Instead of doubt, there was curiosity. Beings who had seen thousands of worlds leaned forward, trying to understand. Some of them had sensors capable of detecting changes in pressure, temperature, and chemical composition, but even their advanced instruments couldn't fully explain the harmony that humans described. The human continued, describing how the oceans were home to countless creatures, from the tiniest plankton to massive animals that could travel for thousands of kilometers. Rivers supported entire ecosystems of fish, birds, and mammals. Lakes provided fresh water for land animals and humans alike. It was a system unlike any other the council had known. A younger council member, whose skin shimmered with green patterns, raised a question. "But your species survives in these conditions? Does the liquid not threaten your existence? Have you not drowned or been harmed by storms?" The human nodded. "Yes, there have been dangers. Floods, storms, tsunamis, they happen. But humans are adaptable. We learn to predict storms, build shelters, and work together to survive. We also explore water safely, swim, and travel across it using ships and machines we built. Life on Earth is not easy, but it is balanced. The liquid we have does not destroy us, it is part of us." Some council members whispered to one another, and the human noticed subtle changes in their expressions. A few looked thoughtful, others were visibly astonished. This was not a display of technology or weapons. It was a story of survival, adaptation, and harmony with a natural environment. Humans had turned what many civilizations would see as a dangerous challenge into an advantage. And that fact alone compressed the council dot to illustrate their point further. The human projected images of water bodies at different scales. There were oceans so vast that the horizon seemed endless, rivers winding like ribbons through forests and plains, and lakes reflecting the skies above. They showed seasonal changes, rivers swelling with rain, oceans churning with tides, and snow melting into streams. The council members observed in silence, their sensors capturing data, yet their minds struggling to grasp how a species could thrive in such a dynamic environment. Then the human did something unexpected. They shared a story, a simple tale from Earth. They described a village near a river where humans relied on water for drinking, farming, and fishing. When the river flooded, the villagers helped each other evacuate, saved animals, and rebuilt their homes. They explained how children learned to swim in the river, how families traveled across lakes, and how communities celebrated the seasons with festivals by the water. The story was simple, almost ordinary, but it painted a vivid picture of human resilience and connection with liquid. The elder counselor spoke again, this time with a tone of curiosity. "Your species. You survive not only in proximity to liquid, but depend on it. You are part of it, yet not overwhelmed by it. How did you achieve this balance?" The human took a deep breath. "We didn't achieve it all at once. Life on Earth evolved over billions of years. Species learned to adapt, including humans. We observed nature, learned from it, and developed ways to live with it. We built homes, tools, and systems to coexist with the liquid around us. It is not just survival, it is understanding. We respect the oceans, rivers, and lakes, and they, in turn, support our life. A ripple of amazement passed through the chamber. The council members had seen countless civilizations, but few could describe such a profound relationship with their environment. Some whispered to each other, questioning how humans could survive on a planet so dominated by liquid. Others leaned closer to the projections, trying to study every detail of Earth's oceans, rivers, and lakes. It was becoming clear that Earth was not merely habitable, it was unique in its balance. And humans had mastered that balance in ways the Council had not anticipated. The human continued, now addressing the Council more directly. They spoke about how water influenced culture, science, and daily life. Humans studied oceans to understand weather patterns, currents, and marine life. Rivers provided transportation and energy. Lakes and reservoirs ensured that even during dry seasons, humans could continue to live and grow food. The human explained that water was not a threat. It was a teacher, a provider, and a source of inspiration. As the human spoke, some council members began to murmur amongst themselves. Remarkable, unprecedented, adaptable, resilient. The words floated through the chamber, almost audible even across the vast space. Many realized that they had underestimated humans. They had assumed humans were simple, barely capable of survival on a single planet. But here was evidence that humans had not only survived, but thrived in an environment. Many species would find hostile. To further illustrate the point, the human showed holograms of human exploration and innovation. Humans had built vessels to cross oceans, submarines to explore depths, and machines to measure currents and water quality. They had learned to predict storms, harvest resources sustainably, and even explore liquid environments beyond Earth in simulations. The human's words and images combined science with story, logic with emotion, painting a picture of a species that respected and harnessed the power of liquid rather than being destroyed by it. The council chamber was no longer just a place of formal discussion. It had become a place of awe. Some members, who had entered the hall assuming humans were insignificant, now regarded the human with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Others remained skeptical, but even they could not deny the evidence. A planet with stable, life-supporting liquid, inhabited by a species capable of understanding and thriving in that environment, this was a revelation. The human paused, allowing the council to absorb the information. They did not push, argue, or demand recognition. They let the truth speak for itself. And the truth was astonishing. Earth, with its oceans, rivers, and lakes, was a planet unlike any other known to the galaxy. And humans were not just surviving, they were mastering it. Finally, one of the elder members of the council spoke again. Their voice was low, but carried through the chamber. Your species has presented something we did not expect. A planet with liquid, fully integrated with life, and a species that thrives in it. This is extraordinary. You have shifted our understanding of what is possible. The human nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and satisfaction. They had expected skepticism, even hostility, but the acknowledgement was more than they had hoped for. They knew the journey had just begun. There would be more questions, more challenges, and more opportunities to prove humanity's place in the galaxy. But for now, they had done the impossible. They had made the Galactic Council pause, reflect, and marvel at the simple yet profound truth that Earth had liquid on it, and that humans lived in harmony with it. The human took a step back, letting the projections float in the air. The images shimmered with oceans, rivers, and lakes, showing the full beauty and complexity of life on Earth. The council members observed silently, their minds racing to understand the implications. For the first time, Humans were not just another species. They were a species with insight, resilience, and a unique relationship with their planet. And in that moment, the human realized something essential. It was not technology, weapons, or numbers that come. The human took a slow, deliberate breath, knowing this part of the discussion was crucial. Words alone could spark curiosity, but now the council needed proof. They needed to see that Earth was not just a story, but a real planet, alive and covered with liquid that supported life. With a small gesture, the human activated a series of holographic displays above them. At first, it was a simple globe of Earth, blue and green, spinning gently. But soon, the images expanded, revealing oceans stretching farther than any council member had imagined. Rivers winding across continents, lakes reflecting cloud-filled skies, and ice caps shimmering at the poles. The chamber fell silent. Some of the council members leaned forward, their sensory organs, whatever form they took, adjusting to the reality of what they were witnessing. The human spoke calmly, explaining each projection. "This is the Pacific Ocean," they said, pointing at a massive expanse of water. "It covers more area than most continents combined. It is home to countless species of plants and animals. Currents move water across the globe, affecting weather and climate. And humans have learned to navigate it, study it, and even explore its depths." A counselor with multiple eyes focused intensely on the display. "You say humans explore this liquid?" It asked. "Do you not drown? Do you not perish in these conditions?" The human smiled faintly. "Humans have learned to survive. We swim, dive, and sail. We build ships that carry us across oceans, and we use machines to explore the depths safely. Life in the liquid is challenging, but it is not impossible. Humans respect the water, understand its power, and work with it." They moved the projection to the Atlantic Ocean next, showing the swirling currents and massive waves. "This ocean alone connects continents," the human explained. "Rivers from distant lands feed into it, carrying nutrients, water, and life. Humans travel across it for trade, exploration, and scientific discovery. Life here is not just survival, it is adventure, learning, and understanding." Many council members whispered to one another. Some of them had planets with small amounts of water, but nothing like this. The concept of entire oceans, rivers, and lakes teeming with life was almost incomprehensible. One elder counselor, whose voice was deep and resonant, leaned forward and asked, "Do you understand the scale of what you are describing? No species we have observed has thrived in such a liquid environment. Most perish, and the planet remains barren. How does humanity succeed?" The human nodded, anticipating this question. "It is not easy," they said. "Humans evolved on this planet over millions of years. We adapted to live with the water, not against it. We learned from nature, observed patterns, and built systems to coexist. We study storms, tides, and currents. We swim and dive. We build structures that float or withstand floods. Humans respect the liquid, and that respect has kept us alive and thriving." The human then expanded the holograms further, showing rivers like veins running through continents, feeding into lakes and oceans. "Rivers are life pathways," the human said. "They carry water, food, and nutrients across vast distances. They are home to fish, birds, and countless creatures. Humans have settlements along rivers for thousands of years, using them for drinking, farming, and transportation. Floods sometimes happen, but humans help each other and rebuild. Rivers are not threats, they are life." Another council member, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal, spoke up. "You claimed humans can not only survive, but thrive near liquid. How do you predict dangers like storms, floods, or tsunamis?" The human nodded again. "We study patterns. We observe clouds, wind, and currents. We use tools and machines to predict storms before they arrive. Communities prepare together. Humans learn from experience and share knowledge. Water can be dangerous, but understanding it keeps us safe. The human then projected holograms of lakes, each one different. Some were small and calm, perfect for fishing and swimming. Others were vast, stretching beyond sight, reflecting mountains and skies. Lakes provide fresh water for humans and animals. They support farming, drinking, and recreation. Humans depend on lakes for survival, but also for joy and community. Children learn to swim here. Families celebrate festivals along the shores. Lakes connect humans to nature in ways nothing else can. The council members whispered among themselves. Remarkable, resilient, adaptable. The words floated through the chamber, conveying the astonishment that even advanced civilizations felt in the presence of a species that had mastered a liquid-rich planet. The human, then, shifted to oceans again, this time showing life beneath the waves. Schools of fish, giant whales, coral reefs, and strange deep-sea creatures appeared in vivid holograms. The oceans are vast and full of life, the human explained. Some creatures are small, others massive. Humans study them, learn from them, and coexist. We do not dominate. We observe and respect. Oceans are not just water. They are ecosystems, teachers, and sources of food and energy. A council member with multiple arms and shimmering eyes tilted its head. And your species lives on land, not in the oceans? Yes, the human replied. Humans evolved on land, but learned to interact with water safely. Our cities, farms, and homes are on land, but rivers and oceans are part of our lives. We travel across them, study them, and enjoy them. Water is not a barrier, it is a partner in our survival. The human then told a story of a human settlement by a river delta. They described the morning mist rising from the water, the sound of fish jumping, and children learning to swim under the watchful eyes of elders. They spoke of storms that sometimes flooded the fields, and how the community came together to rebuild and protect each other. This is life on Earth, the human said. Water shapes our experiences, our culture, and our survival. We do not fear it. We embrace it, learn from it, and respect its power. The council chamber was silent. Even the skeptics, who had initially doubted humans, could not deny the evidence before them. Holograms floated above, showing oceans, rivers, lakes, and creatures of all kinds. The human's words connected these images to real-life experiences, showing a civilization capable of understanding, surviving, and thriving in a way that few species could imagine. The human continued to expand their presentation, showing rainfall patterns, monsoons, and the movement of glaciers. They explained how the water cycle worked: evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and collection. This cycle maintains balance on Earth, the human said. It keeps water flowing, nourishes plants and animals, and allows humans to live safely. Life and liquid are connected in ways that sustain the planet and its people. A council member with crystalline eyes whispered to its neighbor, "We have never observed a species mastering such a dynamic environment." Another nodded, its voice tinged with awe. "It is extraordinary. They do not just survive, they understand." The human then concluded their demonstration with a projection of Earth from space. Blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds swirled together in a beautiful, balanced planet. "This is our home," the human said. "A planet with liquid, life, and learning. Humans thrive here because we respect the water, understand its patterns, and live in harmony with it. Earth is not just a planet with water, it is a planet alive, and we are part of that life." The council members absorbed the information in silence. Some were visibly stunned, their bodies quivering slightly as if processing data at an emotional level. Others whispered quietly, acknowledging the uniqueness of Earth. For centuries, they had assumed humans were insignificant. Now, they realized that humans were not only capable of surviving in a liquid-rich world, they were thriving, adapting, and mastering it in ways that demanded recognition. The humans stepped back slightly, letting the images float in the air. They did not push further. They let the truth speak for itself. And the truth was astonishing. Earth, with its oceans, rivers, and lakes, was alive. Humans had learned to live with its liquid, to benefit from it, and to thrive because of it. That simple fact was more powerful than any argument or evidence the council had ever seen. Finally, an elder counselor spoke, their voice low but resonant. This is unlike anything we have ever encountered. A species thriving on a planet dominated by liquid. You have not only survived, you have flourished. Your civilization respects the balance of nature and adapts to its challenges. This is extraordinary. The human nodded, knowing this acknowledgement was significant. They had presented facts, stories, and evidence, and had shifted the council's perception. Humans were no longer a minor species on a distant planet. They were resilient, intelligent, and capable of living in harmony with one of the galaxy's most challenging environments in that moment. The human realized something profound. It was not machines, weapons, or technology that impressed the council. It was truth, clarity, and the ability to convey experience and understanding. The simple fact that Earth had liquid and humans could thrive within it had astonished beings who had seen thousands of worlds. And as the human looked around the chamber, taking in the reactions of the council members, they knew that this was only the beginning. Questions would follow, debates would continue, and humans would have to prove themselves further. But for now, the first barrier had been broken. The council had seen Earth, and they had seen the humans who lived in harmony with it. The chamber, once silent in awe, began to buzz again with low murmurs. The council members, now fully aware of the evidence of Earth's liquid and thriving life, began to discuss among themselves. Their whispers carried curiosity, disbelief, and cautious admiration. Some leaned toward each other, exchanging data through vibrations or color flashes across their skin, translating complex ideas into instant communication. The humans stood calmly, observing the exchange. They knew that seeing the truth was only half the battle. Convincing these ancient, highly intelligent beings that humans were capable, resilient, and worth understanding would be another challenge entirely. One counselor with a serpentine body and multiple eyes flicking rapidly spoke first. Its voice hissed softly, carrying authority over the whispers of others. Even if we accept that this planet has liquid, the survival of its inhabitants seems improbable. Most species we have studied perish when faced with such a dynamic environment. This human species, how have they adapted so quickly, and why do they not collapse under natural forces like storms, floods, and tidal surges? The humans stepped forward slightly, meeting the counselor's gaze. Humans did not adapt quickly, they said. It took millions of years for life to evolve on Earth. We learned from experience over generations. We studied the water, observed patterns, and developed ways to live with it. Floods happen, storms happen, but humans survive by preparing, cooperating, and respecting the forces of nature. We are not superior in the way you might expect. We are adaptable. A council member with crystalline wings and glowing veins floated higher above the floor, its voice chiming like bells. Adaptable? We see adaptation in countless species across the galaxy, yet none thrive in a liquid-dominant environment as you claim. Are you suggesting that your species can maintain this balance indefinitely? The human nodded. Not indefinitely. Life is always at risk. There are storms, earthquakes, tsunamis, and droughts. But humans are clever, and we work together. We build systems to reduce risk, learn from our mistakes, and share knowledge. Survival is not guaranteed, but our respect for nature and our ability to cooperate give us the best chance. The council whispered again, this time more intensely. It was unusual for a human to speak with such calm, confidence in a setting filled with beings who had lived for centuries or longer. They were debating not just the facts, but the implications. If humans could survive on a planet dominated by liquid, it suggested intelligence, problem-solving, and resilience far beyond what many had assumed. Some council members' voices trembled with excitement. Others' skin colors shifted in thought, showing curiosity and awe. A council elder with multiple arms, each tipped with sensitive receptors, floated closer. Its voice was soft but sharp, carrying centuries of observation. You describe human settlements along rivers and lakes, and the use of oceans for travel and sustenance. How have you not been destroyed by these environments? Most civilizations collapse under such conditions, unable to maintain stability or civilization. The human took a slow breath. Humans learn to work with each other and with the environment. We use tools, machines, and knowledge to live safely. We predict storms, build homes that withstand floods, and travel with caution. We study water currents, tides, and seasonal changes. We respect nature rather than trying to dominate it. That respect has kept us alive and allowed us to flourish. The council seemed both skeptical and fascinated. Members whispered rapidly, their communication a mix of color, sound, and movement. A younger member with bioluminescent skin spoke nervously. But even with preparation, does your species not suffer? Are there not casualties? Yes, the human admitted. We lose lives to storms, floods, and accidents. But communities rebuild, and knowledge is shared, so mistakes are not repeated. Life on Earth is fragile, yet humans persist. We do not fear danger, we learn from it and grow stronger. The chamber's atmosphere shifted again. The whispers of doubt began to mix with admiration. Beings who had initially thought humans insignificant were now questioning their assumptions. How could a species survive on a planet so dominated by liquid, full of unpredictable natural forces, and still thrive? The human was showing that resilience, intelligence, and cooperation could sometimes surpass raw power or technology. The serpentine counselor spoke again. And yet, even if your species has survived so far, how do you know you can thrive in the long term? One bad storm, one shift in climate, and your civilization could collapse. What prevents this? The human smiled faintly. Nothing prevents it entirely. But humans have learned to observe, adapt, and plan. We study weather patterns, track floods, and build resilient systems. We explore, understand, and teach the next generation to do the same. Life on Earth is never guaranteed, but our cooperation and knowledge give us the best chance. We do not claim perfection, only understanding and adaptation. Another council member with iridescent wings and a flowing tail, your species claims to respect water. Yet respect alone is not enough to survive in extreme conditions. Do you not fear natural disasters? The human nodded. We fear them, but fear is not enough to stop us. We prepare, protect, and rebuild. Humans have faced volcanoes, hurricanes, floods, and droughts. Each time we adapt, learn, and grow stronger. Respect and preparation together allow us to survive where others might fail. The chamber fell silent. The council was debating internally, their communication subtle but intense. Some members were beginning to shift their perception. Humans were not just primitive creatures. They were a species capable of thriving under conditions many advanced civilizations would find hostile. Their success was not in domination or aggression, but in observation, learning, and cooperation. The human then shared another set of holograms. This time, they projected storms over oceans, floods along rivers, and tidal surges along coasts. Each image showed how humans responded. rescuing stranded communities, reinforcing homes, studying the event to prevent future damage. These are not isolated incidents, the human explained. They are part of life on Earth. Humans face challenges constantly, yet we continue to thrive because we work together and respect nature. Survival is not simple, but it is possible. A council member with glowing eyes that shifted color with emotion whispered, "Remarkable. They survive where most would perish. And they do so not with weapons or technology alone, but with cooperation and understanding." Could it be that their species' greatest strength is their adaptability? The human's gaze swept across the room. They could feel the shift in energy from skepticism to cautious admiration. They knew the council still had doubts, but they also knew that the foundation of respect had been laid. The evidence, combined with human stories of resilience, survival, and cooperation, was reshaping the council's perception. Another council elder, larger and more imposing than the others, finally spoke. "We have studied thousands of civilizations. Few survive harsh environments, fewer still thrive. Yet you speak of survival on a planet dominated by liquid, with unpredictable storms and floods, and a species that not only adapts, but flourishes. How can we reconcile this with what we know of biology and environmental limits?" The human took a deep breath. Humans are not perfect, and we do not claim to be invincible. But we observe, learn, and cooperate. We have survived for thousands of years in diverse environments, from frozen lands to deserts to oceanside cities. Our success is not a mystery. It is the result of adaptation, knowledge, and respect for the forces around us. Earth is challenging, but we have learned to live with it. The council whispered rapidly again. Their discussion was a mix of excitement and disbelief. Many began to understand that humans were not just surviving. They were demonstrating a rare combination of intelligence, cooperation, and resilience. Even the most skeptical members could not dismiss the evidence. The human then shared stories of exploration and discovery. They spoke of humans mapping rivers, sailing oceans, and building technologies to study water safely. They explained how humans learned to predict storms, harness river currents for energy, and protect communities from floods. These stories were simple, yet they carried weight. They demonstrated practical intelligence, teamwork, and respect for natural forces, a combination that the council had rarely seen in any species. Finally, the chamber grew quiet. The human had answered questions, presented evidence, and shared stories. The council had been challenged, surprised, and intrigued. Humans were no longer a species to dismiss. They were a species capable of thriving under conditions many civilizations would find impossible. The humans stepped back, letting the holograms float in the air. Oceans, rivers, lakes, storms, and floods shimmered in detail, showing life's constant struggle and humans' ability to adapt. The council observed in silence, their minds processing what they had seen. They were debating not only the facts, but the implications. Humans were no longer insignificant, they were adaptable, intelligent, and resilient. And in that moment, the human realized that the true power of their species was not technology, weapons, or strength. It was the ability to survive, learn, and cooperate in a world that many would find impossible. The council was beginning to see that. Humans were not just surviving, they were mastering their environment, and that mastery demanded respect. The chamber had grown quiet again, but this time it was different. The initial whispers of skepticism and doubt had slowly faded, replaced by a growing sense of awe. The humans stood calmly in the center of the room, watching as the council members processed what they had seen and heard. For centuries, the council had studied thousands of species, visited countless worlds, and believed themselves to understand all forms of life in the galaxy. Yet, Earth and its inhabitants had challenged everything they thought they knew. The human could feel the change in energy in the room. The council was no longer questioning. They were marveling. The elder counselor, whose translucent skin shimmered with subtle colors of thought, floated higher, addressing the assembly. We have seen evidence, projections, and demonstrations. We have listened to stories of survival, adaptation, and understanding. And yet, it is difficult to believe that a species can not only endure, but thrive on a planet dominated by liquid. The human nodded slowly. It is true that our planet can be dangerous. Storms, floods, and currents can take lives. But humans have learned to live with these challenges. We do not fear water. We respect it. We observe, study, and cooperate with it. This is how we survive, and this is how we thrive. A younger counselor, with skin like flowing silver and eyes that reflected light, spoke up. Your species demonstrates resilience we have not observed in many others. You survive in a dynamic environment, adapt to change, and even use your planet's liquid to advance knowledge, travel, and sustain life. Tell us, how did you achieve this? The human smiled faintly, knowing that the answer would not come from technology or weapons, but from the truth of human experience. We achieved it through observation, patience, and cooperation. Humans evolved over millions of years, learning from the environment and from each other. We built tools to navigate water, studied weather and tides, and developed communities that work together to survive. Every generation learns from the previous one. We respect nature and learn from it rather than trying to dominate it. That respect and cooperation allow us to thrive where others might fail. The council was silent for a moment, processing these words. Some members, despite their advanced intelligence, seemed visibly shaken. Their multifaceted eyes focused intently on the human, and subtle vibrations and colors passed between them, indicators of discussion and astonishment. One elder counselor spoke softly, almost to themselves. They survive, not because of brute force or weaponry, but because they understand their world. They adapt and cooperate. This is rare, very rare. The human took a step forward, gesturing to the holograms of Earth floating above. Oceans, rivers, lakes, and waterfalls shimmered in the air, showing life teeming across the planet. Schools of fish swam through holographic seas, whales rose and fell in the waves, and rivers wound gracefully across continents. These are not just bodies of water, the human said. They are life systems. They support plants, animals, and humans. They shape our culture, our cities, and our daily lives. We live with them, learn from them, and protect them when we can. Water is not just a resource, it is a teacher, a challenge, and a partner. A council member, larger than most, with crystalline limbs that refracted light, tilted its head. And your species manages this balance across the entire planet. You do not collapse under natural disasters, resource scarcity, or internal conflict. The human nodded. No species is perfect. Humans face challenges constantly. Storms destroy homes, rivers flood, and sometimes communities are affected. But we rebuild, learn, and share knowledge. Cooperation is our greatest tool. We survive because we adapt together, not because we dominate individually. And that is why we can thrive, even on a planet as challenging as Earth. The chamber began to hum quietly as members whispered to one another. It was clear that the council was no longer debating human survival. They were beginning to marvel at it. Some members exchanged glances of disbelief and admiration. A species that could not only survive, but thrive in an environment dominated by liquid, using observation, cooperation, and respect instead of power or violence. This was extraordinary. The human projected more detailed images. The swirling waters of a hurricane over the ocean, tidal waves along the coast, and rivers overflowing with rain. Then they showed how humans responded, rescuing stranded communities, reinforcing homes, and using knowledge to prevent future disasters. These challenges are part of life, the human said. They test our skills, our cooperation, and our understanding. And yet, we adapt. We do not see water as an enemy, but as a part of life to respect and understand. That is how we continue to thrive. A counselor with flowing, liquid-like appendages moved closer, its eyes reflecting the holograms. You face storms, floods, and other natural disasters, and yet your species thrives. This is not merely survival, it is extraordinary intelligence applied to life itself. How do you maintain this knowledge over generations? The human smiled softly. Humans pass knowledge to the next generation. We observe, teach, and learn. We write down our discoveries, share stories, and train children to understand nature. Every generation builds on the knowledge of the previous one. We learn from mistakes and successes alike. This continuity allows humans to survive and thrive even in the most dynamic environments. The whispers among the council grew louder, though still subdued. Words of astonishment traveled across the chamber. Remarkable, resilient, adaptable, cooperative, intelligent. Some members shifted their glowing colors, a sign of internal debate mixed with admiration. Others floated closer to the projections, studying Earth in detail. They were learning not just about water, but about the humans who lived with it. The human then spoke of exploration. Humans do not just survive passively. We explore rivers, oceans, and lakes. We build vessels, dive beneath the waves, and study marine life. We learn from water, and we use that knowledge to advance civilization. Exploration is part of who we are. It teaches us patience, resilience, and respect for forces greater than ourselves. An elder counselor with hundreds of sensitive eyes leaned forward. You are suggesting that your species' strength lies not in domination or advanced weaponry, but in observation, learning, and cooperation. Yes, the human replied. That is exactly it. Humans survive and thrive because we understand our environment and work together. Our planet is challenging, dominated by liquid that can destroy or sustain life. By learning from it and cooperating, we not only survive, we flourish. That is our strength. The council seemed to shift entirely. Skepticism had given way to awe. Members who had entered the chamber expecting a primitive species were now witnesses to intelligence, resilience, and adaptability that rivaled advanced civilizations. Some began exchanging signals, confirming observations, and sharing insights. Even those still skeptical had to acknowledge that Earth and humans were. Extraordinary got the human, then shared stories of human communities. They described villages by rivers, cities near oceans, and towns by lakes. They spoke of people working together to build, survive, and celebrate life. Children learned to swim, farmers relied on rivers for irrigation, and communities rebuilt after storms. Humans are connected to the water around them, the human explained. It shapes our lives, our culture, and our survival. Water is not just a resource, it is a part of life that we respect and work with. A counselor with reflective wings whispered to a companion, their relationship with water is unlike anything we have observed. They do not dominate, they adapt. They do not fear, they respect. And through this, they thrive. The human then allowed the chamber to absorb the final images: Earth from space, oceans swirling with life, rivers cutting through continents, lakes shimmering in the sun. The planet was alive, dynamic, and beautiful. Humans were not just surviving, they were thriving, in harmony with a world that many civilizations would find hostile. Finally, an elder counselor spoke, their voice resonating through the chamber. We have observed, questioned, and debated, and yet what we witness is undeniable. Earth is unique, and its inhabitants are extraordinary. Your species demonstrates resilience, intelligence, and cooperation at a level we did not expect. Humans are no longer insignificant, they are remarkable. The human nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and quiet pride. They had not needed to boast or argue. The truth itself had commanded respect. The council's acknowledgement was a victory not just for the human speaker, but for all of humanity. They had shown that survival and understanding could outweigh raw power. They had shown that humans could thrive where others might fail. And in that moment, the human understood something profound. It was not technology, weaponry, or force that had impressed the council. It was truth, clarity, and the simple power of life lived in harmony with nature. Humans on a planet dominated by liquid had survived and thrived through observation, cooperation, and respect. That realization had astonished even the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The human took a slow breath, stepping back slightly as the holograms of Earth shimmered around them. The council members, once skeptical, were now fully engaged in awe. They whispered, debated quietly, and studied the planet carefully. The human knew that this recognition was only the beginning. There would be further discussions, questions, and exploration. But for now, humanity had achieved summit. After hours of discussion, the chamber fell into a thoughtful silence. The council had listened, questioned, and observed, and now, for the first time, they were truly reflecting. Humans were no longer abstract creatures on a distant planet. They were a species capable of surviving, adapting, and thriving in conditions that many civilizations would find impossible. The humans stood quietly, letting the weight of this realization settle over the assembly. There was no need to speak immediately. The evidence, stories, and holograms had already spoken for themselves about an elder counselor, whose translucent skin shimmered in subtle patterns of thought, finally broke the silence. We have studied thousands of worlds, yet Earth presents challenges and achievements unlike any we have seen. Your species demonstrates resilience, intelligence, and cooperation at a level we did not expect. Tell us, human, how do you see your future? The human took a slow breath. Our future is connected to our planet and to each other. We will continue to learn, explore, and adapt. We will respect our environment and work together to overcome challenges. We do not seek to dominate other worlds, but to understand them and live in harmony where possible. Our future depends on cooperation, knowledge, and respect for life ours and that of others. A council member with multiple crystalline limbs tilted its head. And your species would offer this perspective to the wider galaxy? You have shown us your world, your adaptability, and your intelligence. How would humans interact with civilizations beyond Earth? The human smiled faintly. We have much to learn. We will make mistakes, and there will be challenges. But we seek understanding, communication, and cooperation. We will approach other civilizations with respect, just as we respect our planet. Our survival depends on collaboration, not conflict. We hope that by showing who we are and what we value, we can build relationships rather than destroy them. The chamber hummed as whispers spread across the council. Some members exchanged signals of approval and curiosity. Others floated closer to the holographic images of Earth, studying the oceans, rivers, lakes, and human settlements in more detail. It was clear that the perception of humans had shifted completely. They were no longer considered insignificant. They were recognized as capable, intelligent, and resilient. One of the elder counselors, whose voice carried centuries of authority, addressed the assembly. We have witnessed, questioned, and debated. The evidence is undeniable. Earth is unique, and humans have demonstrated remarkable skill in survival, adaptation, and cooperation. This species must be acknowledged in our records and considered in all future deliberations regarding sentient life. The human felt a subtle sense of pride, tempered with humility. They knew this recognition was significant, not for personal glory, but for the acknowledgement of humanity as a species. Thank you, the human said simply. Humans are not perfect, and we continue to learn. Recognition from the council is an honor, but our greatest strength remains our ability to observe, adapt, and work together. That is how we survive, and that is how we will continue to thrive. A younger council member with bioluminescent skin spoke next. We have seen evidence of storms, floods, and dangerous waters. We have heard of humans' cooperation, adaptation, and understanding. It is extraordinary. Few species could survive in such a dynamic environment, let alone thrive. Your species has earned not only respect, but also curiosity and study. The human projected a final set of images, showing humans exploring rivers, sailing across oceans, and studying aquatic life. They showed communities rebuilding after storms, teaching children to swim, and celebrating the life-giving presence of water. This is our story, the human said. Life is challenging, but we work together, learn from nature, and grow stronger. That is who we are. That is Earth. The council members absorbed the images and words. Some glimmered with signals of admiration, others with thoughtful reflection. They whispered to one another, debating in subtle tones that the human could barely perceive. Yet it was clear that the perception of humanity had shifted entirely. Humans were no longer a minor species. They were recognized as intelligent, resilient, and worthy of consideration in the galaxy. An elder counselor floated closer, their eyes reflecting the holograms. Your species demonstrates something rare, the ability to survive in a hostile environment through understanding, cooperation, and respect for natural forces. You thrive without domination, without conquest. This is extraordinary. Earth and its inhabitants will be studied, remembered, and considered in future interactions. Your survival and adaptability are exemplary. The human nodded. That is all humans have ever sought: to live, to learn, and to thrive while respecting the world around us. We do not claim perfection, but we value cooperation, knowledge, and understanding. That is our strength, and that is how we will continue into the future. The council members whispered quietly among themselves, clearly impressed. Some signals of approval spread throughout the chamber, subtle but unmistakable. It was as if the galaxy itself had paused to acknowledge Earth and its resilient inhabitants. Humans had not only survived, they had earned respect and recognition on a scale previously unimaginable. The human allowed the chamber to absorb the final images of Earth: oceans reflecting sunlight, rivers winding through forests and plains, lakes shimmering under the sky, and communities living in harmony with water. Each image told a story of resilience, cooperation, and respect for the planet. The council members floated silently, observing and processing, their perception of humans completely transformed. One of the elder counselors finally addressed the assembly. Let it be recorded, Earth is a unique planet. Its inhabitants demonstrate resilience, intelligence, and cooperation at a level rarely observed. Humans survive and thrive in a dynamic environment dominated by liquid. They are to be recognized as a species worthy of study, consideration, and interaction within the galaxy. The human felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had not needed to argue, threaten, or impress with weapons or technology. The truth had spoken for itself. Humans, living in harmony with their planet, had earned acknowledgement from one of the most powerful assemblies in the galaxy. As the council continued their deliberations, the human reflected on what had been achieved. The journey had been challenging. Skepticism, doubt, and disbelief had been expected, but so had curiosity, intelligence, and understanding. By presenting evidence, sharing stories, and demonstrating the resilience and cooperation of humans, the human had shown that Earth and its inhabitants were extraordinary. The chamber grew quiet once more, the final murmurs fading as the council absorbed the reality of Earth. Humans were no longer a distant species of minor interest. They were a civilization recognized for its intelligence. adaptability, and harmony with the natural world. The human knew that this acknowledgement would shape future interactions, debates, and perceptions. Humanity had stepped into a wider galaxy not as a minor participant, but as a species worthy of respect and consideration. Finally, the humans spoke softly, almost to themselves. We survive because we cooperate. We thrive because we respect the world and learn from it. That is humanity's greatest strength. That is Earth. The chamber remained still, but the energy had shifted. The council had been shocked, questioned, and finally awed. Humans had proven that survival, intelligence, and respect for life could command recognition even among the galaxy's most powerful beings. Earth had been revealed not as a simple planet with water, but as a living, dynamic world, home to a species capable of thriving against all odds. And in that moment, the human understood that the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Recognition had been earned, respect granted, and a path forward opened. Humans had survived, adapted, and thrived not just on Earth, but in the perception of the galaxy itself. The human looked at the council one last time, then stepped back, letting the holograms of Earth continue to float in the chamber. Oceans glimmered, rivers flowed, and lakes shimmered. Life moved and thrived. And the council, for the first time, understood the full depth of humanity's resilience, intelligence, and harmony with their planet. It was a moment of triumph, not for one human, but for all of humanity. The galaxy had taken notice, and Earth had been revealed in its full, liquid-rich glory, with a species worthy of awe, respect, and curiosity. Humanity's story had been told, and it was extraordinary.